Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm as always your host, Brody Robertson, and you may have seen that post, I guess a couple of months ago now, about GNOME having stronger dependencies on systemd, and then more recently, there was that whole Artix forum post where they were like, we are not doing this GNOME thing anymore, this is too hard without systemd, and today we have someone who doesn't think it's too hard and managed to get it working on something that's not systemd. Welcome to the show. How about you introduce yourself?
Well, for one, I actually think it was a little hard,
Okay.
but
It wasn't hard enough to
my
just give
name
up.
my name is Highland. I'll sometimes go by Swagtoy, and I'm mostly a software developer. It's kind of all I do. I've worked on some things. The Gentoo stuff is pretty recent and all the OpenRC stuff, but I've worked on some other open source projects. I've worked on KDE in the past a tiny bit. I've worked on Enlightenment some. I've worked on SuperTux, surprisingly. Um, and now I've been picking up some Gentoo stuff. I wanted to try some small tasks, like bumping GNOME. It's not a very small one, but it's been going pretty well so far.
Mhm.
Um, Anything you want me to say here?
No, that's totally fine. I guess we can just. It's probably a good idea to get started from like where Artix was coming from, just so everyone's kind of up to speed. I think that's the one a lot
Ah,
of people kind of know about, but there's a lot of people
so
who probably have no idea about what even like why there is even a problem with GNOME outside of systemd.
right, actually, that's a good place to start. I know, I guess to brief people up, GNOME 49. I mean, you did kind of mention this a while back, but
Mhm.
GNOME 49 basically I'm going to put it in quotation marks, hard dependency on systemd, but
Mhm.
I consider it more of a soft dependency because essentially the way it worked before is that Gnome-session, which is just a program, pretty much handled and started GNOME. It's kind of how KDE works too at the moment. They basically have a little session manager. It starts KWin. It waits for KWin to crash because it's always going to crash. Um, it pretty much it's like a little watchdog service, and
Mhm.
GNOME also has one of those, but one thing it did recently was it started switching away from basically maintaining, watching, and inspecting the services, and it started switching to systemd for several reasons that I'm
Mhm.
mostly familiar with as to why, because there were some issues with the old approach.
Mhm.
Um, so the next bit is Artix, and Artix, I'm going to be very brief. I don't care too much about Artix, but I respect what they do. They're pretty much trying to maintain like 300 init systems.
Mhm.
Whether I consider that valuable or not is up to the viewer. But um, basically, they are dropping GNOME and entirely dropping GNOME, all because of the blog post and just everything that's going on.
Mhm.
And this started a little bit of a shitstorm towards the Gnome-session developers and stuff, and
Mhm.
all that. And oh yeah, more Gnome hate. Good riddance, I think, was one of the replies on that
Oh,
blog
that was
post.
one of the nicer replies.
I didn't actually send me a link to that real quick.
I
Actually,
can absolutely do that.
yeah, we
Uh,
should have briefed on that, but
Probably, but
there we go.
um.
So
You got adieu. Nobody will miss you. Less headache on Artix devs. If you discover you're riding a dead horse, dismount. Normal forum stuff you see.
I like this one. I will focus on Hyperland. Anyway, I actually accidentally started talking with an Artix developer because he happened to be in the same IRC channel as me
Mhm.
when I was talking with the Enlightenment developer on it. Um, and he definitely didn't have some pretty things to say.
Mhm. Mhm.
But essentially they're dropping it because they can't siphon off of someone else's patches, and they no hard feelings, but also a little hard feelings. They have more init systems out of the box than say like Gentoo, for example, which we only have systemd and OpenRC. We have some other ones too, but those are more experimental. You're on your own kind of situation. But for the most part,
Let's see, what does
we support those.
Artix actually have? Sorry, I'm not remembering the full list. So it is OpenRC, Runit, S6, or DNet. Is that all of them? That sounds right. There might be other ones that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I believe it's those ones, which is pretty similar to I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Devuin?
Devuin, yeah.
But
I think they also have
I
feel like they have another one that I'm just blanking on. Init freedom.
I remember actually they only had like 3, but this was a long time ago when I actually used that distro once.
Shepherd is what they had that I was forgetting.
Oh, Shepherd. I will actually touch base on that later because the Shepherd developer for GNU Herd has also done some work with this, though it seems a little out of date. But they did get it running, and they had like a post somewhere showing it off. Anyway, with Artix, and I'll also touch base on Runit. I have a hatred for Runit, but basically they're going to drop it. And the first thing when I saw this blog post that irritated me, that is actually just straight up wrong, is that it says here, this makes it currently impossible to launch GNOME Shell and Mutter on a non-systemd system. This isn't true. And I know it's not true because for a long time I actually had to run these directly without, because Gnome-session didn't work yet. They don't have to drop these packages, and which is, again, it just kind of irritates me that they're saying, oh, we can't do it anymore. But you can run them directly. They're not the most usable things, but for the most part, the only thing you're losing, which I guess is kind of a big thing you'd lose, is you can't log out, you can't shut down, you can't reboot, and maybe stuff like lock screen. But that doesn't mean they have to drop the package entirely because it still works. So as I'm reading here, yeah, they're pretty much just saying that they don't have the time or interest to write a new systemd code path. And believe it or not, at some point I will actually try and work with them to make it happen, because I know there are lots of Artix users.
Before we segue off of that, you said you can't shut down. That, to a lot of people, is going to sound like a really big deal. A bit more context than that. I'm assuming what you're saying is you can't shut down through, like, the GNOME interface.
Right. So, yeah, pretty much just that. Because that calls out to Gnome-session, which tries to do, like, a clean shutdown. And if it doesn't detect, can't remember fondly, I think it's the dbus, like, session. Basically, it'll send, like, a signal, like signal init to GNOME shell, I believe. And then that will allow it to shut down and log out.
Right. But you could still shut it down through other means. You're just not going to have a clean shutdown. It's not
technically speaking, you can just patch GNOME shell directly and like hijack how it shuts down. Like you can do that. There's more than 8 ways to skin this horse.
Right.
But basically, join me, brother. I guess now we have to move on from that though, because for the most part, like, they're just dropping it. They don't seem interested in picking it up. A bunch of useless comments. But there was some mention, I think, here about if my web browser will not freeze. Yeah, this is actually a very recent reply where someone was mentioning how I put some efforts. The video won't load.
Yes, a person. Yes, a person is talking about it. Yes, you are a person.
More Tim. Yeah, they're yeah, a person. Yeah. So anyway, that was actually a video I uploaded. So me showing it off, I want to get some attention,
Was this one of the ones that you sent me?
Yeah, I think it was actually. It's just not loading here for some reason because Catbox is really slow. But yeah. So basically, the problem with the reason why I'll probably have to pitch out to help these distros
Mhm.
isn't just because of Artix, but because of Devuan.
Mm.
And you have these distros that have like 80 init systems or whatever. For some reason, they have the willpower to maintain that. So what they'll probably want is a more streamlined solution where they can just write one init script, and for each init system they support, could be millions, who knows? It could be 2036. We could be using GNU Herd. You never know. But so I'm probably going to do something like that in the future, but it's not my priority.
Mhm.
So I guess now we can talk a little bit about how it gets ported. You think that's
Well,
a good place to go?
before that, what is so the thing that GNOME has actually changed? What was that component doing?
You mean the Gnome-session component?
Yeah. The part they've swapped out for a stronger dependency on systemd.
So at the moment, I think I kind of brushed up on this that basically Gnome-session was pretty much as someone actually just recently mentioned, a poor man's systemd re-implementation, where it
Mhm.
pretty much just watched the services and kind of just waited for them to die, handled shutdown and all that.
Mhm.
It kind of worked, but there were some other things that something I actually wanted to brush on a little bit. Something for GNOME 50 that's being worked on right now is session save and restore. This is
Mm.
something that GNOME does not actually have right now, but you can technically use it now. It's just kind of stashed away. But with the way things kind of work, it wasn't too possible. I mean, they could have figured out a way for sure, but it wouldn't be pretty.
Mhm.
And and believe it or not, one of the most impressive things that it was mentioned with this whole switching to just, okay, we're going to have the init system handle this as a user daemon,
Mhm.
is they removed about 50, I believe it's more than 50% of the GNOME session code, completely sliced in half.
Okay.
It's incredible. I mean, so, but other than that, GNOME session, it obviously handles logout shutdown. Um, in fact, the way it all works right now is GNOME or GDM. That's a big one. The GNOME like display manager.
Mhm.
Basically, it will spawn this GNOME session thing, and it will also pass an argument like, okay, GNOME dash login, GNOME dash Wayland, and it will pretty much that will handle starting everything up.
Mhm.
So I was there anything else you wanted me to go over
No,
on
no,
that?
I think that's good enough.
Yeah. So anyway, so you basically now the exciting part is how does someone who doesn't use systemd basically replace everything? Like how do they make this work?
Mhm.
And
So this takes us to
surprisingly,
your
this
Gnome-session OpenRC project.
yes. So where is my web browser? Here we go. So the way something that will surprise many people here is that GNOME, and at least Adrian, he actually intended for other init systems to play in.
Mhm.
And so this is why I don't call it a hard dependency, because while it technically needs it out of the box, this was intentionally designed. Like it's not like there was some code I have to sit and comment out, put it if zero, uh, do this and remove that. No, it's nothing like that. In
So there's no
fact, it is
forking of
all
GNOME that
entire
needed to be done. It's just a change on the OpenRC side.
almost there. You
Okay.
do have to add a C file. This is because you actually basically in the GNOME session repository, if I actually look at the upstream here, you'll see this little file here called leader-systemd.
Mhm.
There's also this gsm-systemd, but I believe that's just not called on the. It's only used by leader or leader systemd. So
Mhm.
basically, you have leader main, which spawns the other service, which is leader systemd.
Mhm.
And what is special about that is that file right there, that single C file, contains everything relating just to systemd. Nothing else is involved. It does all the service spawning. In fact, it is pretty much the service that gets called by GDM. It will call GNOME session, and it calls this systemd thing, which is called GNOME session init worker. It calls that with the argument like, okay, GNOME login, GNOME Wayland, and boom, we're done.
Mhm.
At this point, that will spawn at least with the code how it is, it'll say over dbus like, hey, start this service, start all these services, start like these dbus services, GNOME setting stuff, all the stuff that GNOME needs to start working. And at that point, that's it. So what about the non-systemd distributions? And this is where the kind of that misconception comes in that, oh, GNOME doesn't care about non-systemd, which is surprising. I actually found some GNOME projects actually have support for elognd. So there is clearly effort actually put into caring about those distros that are upstreamed. And so, believe it or not, actually, the reason the Gnome-session developer doesn't want this stuff upstreamed is because they can't maintain it. They have a testing, unit tests and all that stuff that they have to maintain. Like they actually use like GNOME OS for that stuff. And unfortunately, they can't sit and babysit, every init system on the planet. So they basically say, just modify these 2 files and add your init scripts, and you're done. That's it. And then you can apply it or whatever you got to do to get it working. My approach is nasty, but it's basically we just rsync the changes over, and it'll copy it to the. Before I actually maintained a full fork, but someone said it's not a good idea, and I agreed with them. So this is what we're doing for now. So if you have the GitHub thing open for my OpenRC patches, you'll notice that there's one thing here that stands out, and it has to do with GDM, which is not related to this technically, but you might notice you have to add this user called GDM-greeter. And this is another good thing that I think
where
that
is that under?
It's under applying the changes. And then you'll see like a second little code block. It'll say user add GDM greeter, all that stuff.
What file is that in? Sorry.
The README.
Oh, sorry, the README. Okay, yep.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I might have
So
okay, yep, I see it.
You're good. So GDM, there's another thing another systemd dependency, but the way I like the way this was handled is that for GNOME 49 there is a fallback code path. Essentially, there's a problem with GDM right now where they have only one user called GDM greeter. I'm not sure how KDE and all these people do that. They probably don't. But essentially, there are some weird little quirks with only having one user. Like, for example, there's only one dbus instance or something like that. So, for example, if you change let's say you connect over RDP, like a remote desktop connection, and you change the volume on one session, well, it changes the volume for all of them. And there's some other stuff like auto start, some other weird stuff, just conflicts that can happen. So basically, there's this term called like seeding with like lognd and all that. And essentially, when you only have one user for GDM, you can't really handle that. So this is where this thing called lognd userdb comes in. You might have heard of it. And it basically is a way to dynamically allocate users. As crazy as that sounds, it's kind of like if you could do user add, but without ever calling user add. It'll do it for you. It'll delete it when it's done. It is crazy, but it's done specifically to work around some of these weird quirks with GDM and these bugs. And there's also another issue like accessibility support. I know like their little Orca thing had issues with multiple seats. And this was required to fix that actually. So
Sorry, Orc, for anyone who doesn't know, is a screen reader. Just
okay, yeah. That is pretty much that. And however, there's a bit of a problem with this userdb thing is that elognd, for those who don't know what elognd is, this is a fork of the systemd lognd. It's basically just the parts for lognd snipped out. What is lognd? It's basically like session management. Like, okay, log out, log in, users logged in. It's pretty much every modern desktop needs it. KDE needs it. So there's a fork called elognd made by, I think, the GNU Geeks developers, GUIX, and they actually recently upstreamed userdb support, except I had to open an issue. And unfortunately, they are missing one of the modules needed. And this is actually how I learned today about the Slackware stuff, because a Slackware developer also responded to my issue. Let me get elogin D. He actually responded this morning. Good timing, thankfully. But that we basically need this little NSS plugin, which is like a user hook thing, whatever, mumbo jumbo. It's needed for UserDB stuff to work, and it's not included. I don't know if the developer died or something, or if he had a heart attack. He hasn't replied yet. He hasn't replied to anything in a while. But essentially, we can't use UserDB yet. So that sucks. But whatever. The good thing is that Adrian, the Gnome-session developer, was nice enough to actually leave some fallback code, which is very generous of him, that will essentially just rely on old users, except you can also specify like GDM Greeter 2, GDM Greeter 3. At the moment, I only allocate 1 because, like, seats are kind of I'm not going to say a niche edge case, but not as common. But if you need more users, well, you can just create more users. So as a workaround, until GNOME 50, which, believe it or not, releases in like 2026 later the year, which is next actually. He left some fallback code, and in fact, basically until UserDB support works in elogin, this code will be removed. But I talked with Adrian. He says if people have to keep relying on the hacks, it won't be removed until elogin gets their shit together.
Right.
So that's good. It's very good for me, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to even do all this stuff. So that solves that problem. And so I'm going to kind of reiterate on the whole Gnome-session stuff again. Basically, GNOME, you have to modify a few files, and pretty much all you change, at least as the person maintaining this, is you just replace the systemd unit stuff with your own init system. In the past, I was actually forking. I was pretty much just forking. I'm going to turn a fan on. Sorry, but
no, that's fine.
Let me know if it makes any noise. But pretty much I just like called out to the OpenRC like service thing, and I would pretty much just start the username, and it's like, okay, start GNOME shell, start GSD. Later, I talked with Navi. Navi is the main developer of OpenRC. They've been really friendly to work with. I kid you not, everyone's been friendly to work with, which is very surprising. I probably ate up so much of Adrian's time just sitting in. We would sit for hours trying to debug some of this stuff. He's been a blast, and which kind of makes me feel bad for some of the stuff he's gotten for doing all this, because he's been extremely helpful. He's put all this effort into making sure it works for all of us. Instead of
every
just
interaction
saying,
I've had with him has been totally pleasant. Like, he seems like a
awesome
totally fine guy.
Yeah. Like he's been willing to work with everyone. He put the effort in to make sure that he didn't just pull that whole mentality of like, oh, use systemd or die, like and that saves so much of us. Anyway, worked with Navi, and for the most, like, they're helped me get some stuff figured out with OpenRC. And we actually have a library called librc, which is a C library, which lets us
what? Sorry, what's that?
librc. It's kind of hidden in the it's kind of hidden in like the OpenRC code base, but it's basically like a library for just stopping services, switching run levels, all that fancy stuff. I'll send you the link later. Don't worry.
I found a package on Debian. I haven't found the actual repo, but close enough.
Oh wow, that is it.
Oh, here we go. And and it just links to the OpenRC GitHub. I'm not going to find it in this GitHub. Okay.
I'll send you the direct link to it later.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, that's just it's kind of unrelated, but I just switched to using that library. And basically what I do here, if I look at my code for, and in this case, remember I told you about the leader-systemd thing. On my version, I just have leader-OpenRC. Who would have figured? And basically what I did was I copied the code from leader systemd. It's pretty small, like 300-ish lines. Not too small, depending on who you ask. I don't know, but pretty like simple stuff though. Like all it really does is it takes an argument. Like for example, are we gnome-login? Are we gnome-wayland? And it spawns a service. That's it. That's the whole everything. So you pretty much, I have to do some weird hacks at the moment because one thing OpenRC struggles with is environment variables. And in fact, so I worked with Navi a little bit, and pretty much we got some environment variables set up. One interesting thing is she implemented like a little environment variable thing where we can basically upload environment variables to services. And we actually did this a little better than systemd, believe it or not, because systemd, the way it is you upload the environment variable to. I told Adrian about this, and he was like, "Oh, that's actually pretty cool." We upload in systemd. You upload an environment variable. It's the same variable for every script. Like for example, let's say the display variable or dbus variable. Every service that depends on that is going to use that same one. So what we did for OpenRC, or rather what she did, was basically all of the each service has its own it has its own little scope where like you can
Sorry,
have
you
this
cut out for
service
just a
has
second
these.
there.
Where was I last in?
The last word you said, when you're talking about making the or handling of the variables, you just cut out when you said, I think probably an important word.
It probably was an important word. So basically what it will do is it has its own scope, and each service can import environment variables from one service without creating a messy like global. For example, let's say you need GNOME to have the display variable. This is actually one of the variables it uses. And you also want to have Wayland running, which it needs its own X setting display variable. So the way they work around this in systemd is they create like specific variables. I think this is a GDM thing actually. And they just upload it to systemd, but they create them uniquely for each service. Well, with OpenRC, we have a nice system where now we would set an environment for the service and only the service, and it won't create a messy scope all over the place, and it's pretty neat. So yeah, I was talking about that. So other than the hacks, like we have some hacks where I basically just hard code like the display, for example. I don't like doing that, but X11 is kind of weird with GNOME anyway, so we'll have to figure out what to do with that. But until then, I'm just hard coding like the dbus variable and stuff. It's gross, but it's what we're doing until we get this feature, merged upstream. As far as I'm concerned, they said it works. There's a PR for it. I did some reviews of it, and I think it'll get merged pretty soon. And by the time that gets merged, chances are this will also be merged into Gentoo. I guess I briefed up on pretty much everything with that. There's one more, oh yeah, init scripts. Oh boy, where do I even begin? You have to make some init scripts, and
so for anyone who's not in like the non-systemd space, what do we mean by these init scripts? I know this is something a lot of like OpenRC people always talk about, init scripts, all this. What do we mean by this?
Well, an init script is a script that inits.
Understandable, makes sense. Fair enough.
But so systemd has this thing called services, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I have a hard-ons for systemd, but I will admit that Linux in general, it needs a systemd. I know that's hard to say for even as someone who loves OpenRC, but we need it because there's like 100 distros. And one problem that in the past was an issue was that everyone had to sit and maintain their own init scripts for all these distros, and it was just a pain for distro managers.
Mhm.
So, and package developers, of course. So
Mhm.
systemd kind of streamlines this with their whole service thing, where like you basically just set a few variables. But the nice thing about that is it will work on every distro, almost every distro, without any sort of hacks or dependencies, and that's fine. I have nothing against that. Um, so basically, anyway, there are these things called user services, and this is what systemd uses. And we lucked out so much on user services recently getting imported into OpenRC. And what is a user service, you may be asking?
Mhm.
Well, you know how you have those little services on boot that are like, oh, starting bullshit, starting SSHD
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever like
yeah.
that. All that stuff. Well, user services are like that, except they start when the user logs in. Like,
Mhm.
for example, you might want to start dbus, you might want to start Pipewire. In fact, I believe Gentoo, we're going to start moving away from our old Pipewire scripts and start relying on user services for that.
Mhm.
Um, they're kind of like auto start, but they don't depend on XDG.
Mhm.
um, so that's all nice and dandy. So, and why is that needed? Because, well, when the user logs in, GDM, it starts the script. It has to start the user services for, GNOME and all that, because we want to actually be running GNOME as, the user, not like root or something
Right.
garbage like that. I have actually met someone who runs everything as root, and I am worried about him and his family. But
Yeah. Okay.
so right now we have a bunch of little scripts here. You basically have to define all these yourself. They're the ones that get called from your little OpenRC script or C file. Um, and don't think I could like share my screen or anything like that, so I'm not going to worry about that. But we you can actually look inside them a little bit here. You can go into you have the GitHub site open. You could go to data and then OpenRC, and then you can just click any of these. Um, for example, like GNOME shell dash Wayland, you can actually see the little hacks I introduced there.
Um,
Um,
let me see. Where is it? I lost my tabs. Uh,
really, I have like 800.
which file were you saying?
Data OpenRC, and then you can go to say like GNOME shell Wayland.
Yep. Okay.
And this right here is a user service. You can ignore all the weird little like export hacks I've done there. That's temporary. But basically you can see there the command there where it literally just starts GNOME shell. That's kind of it. And this is going to be a user service. And what's kind of nice about this is this also opens doors for session restarting. I'm not sure if you're aware, but with GNOME, you on Wayland you can't really restart GNOME shell. Like you
Mm.
have to log out, log back in, and all that junk. Um, you could with X11, but
Mhm. Right. Right.
not
Right. Right.
Wayland. So this will make that possible, maybe, and kind of slightly whoever, whatever. Because in this case, we could literally just restart GNOME shell and it'll restart.
Mhm.
Like, everything else will remain running. It's probably not a good idea to do that, but it opens the doors, which is pretty nice. And it's kind of why, Adrian, he wanted to move away from, basically his own or their own, like, hacked up systemd clone
Mhm.
sort
Mhm.
of thing. Um, so basically they're user services. There's like one specifically for like GNOME login. I actually have in the Mason file here. You don't have to open that, but it basically creates like symlinks of stuff. For
Mhm.
example, that little file there called GSD. Basically, with GNOME, there's a bunch of these GSD dash like I don't know housekeeping GSD dash keyboard. There's a bunch of little settings daemon stuff,
Mhm.
and I basically just symlink those and then make them a dependency, and it works out pretty well. Um, so yeah, there's so basically this becomes an issue with some init systems, like
Mhm.
for example Slackware, and like I said, good I remembered Slackware this morning. I've almost forgot it existed, but with Slackware. they have a weird init system, and they don't actually have user services. So their solution to this, and this is not the best solution, but it's a solution nonetheless, is to basically just pull the old code back in.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, this is something that
and
was
it
mentioned
makes
on the
sense.
Artix forum.
Yeah, this was I just saw it this morning when I noticed that the guy was complaining about his little code not working. The same issue I had. Until we get UserDB working, I have to wait for this elognd developer to wake up from his slumber. So Slackware just kind of reverted it, and it looks like that's been working for them. I think I actually saw someone on Reddit like mocking someone and basically saying, actually, it works here.
Yeah.
But Redditors and their not understanding anythingness.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a very honest shake there.
No, I saw the exact comment you're talking about. I think I included that in my video.
Yeah, I think I saw that one too. So pretty much, yeah, they just reverted the code, and that I think Adrian said was weird, but and believe in his blog post, he actually said you could just do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more work, but the only other solution is that they implement they either like hack up their own like user daemon thingy, which they can do that. It's not hard, honestly. Or they could just yes, drops GNOME. Looking at you Artix developers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's it. That's kind of everything. Like I think I've brushed on everything. I could brush on like UserDB. Um work did you lose me?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, Discord was acting up.
Oh.
So typical. But one thing, for the most part, everything works. I am actually on GNOME 49 as we speak. 49.1 actually. There were some bugs with 49 that need to be fixed, but everything works besides auto start. Because I don't use that, so I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm gonna get to it. So yeah, Artix goes up. I literally have in my notes here, they are morons. Slackware got it. Basically, yeah, they just reverted the code. So I'm trying to think of some other things to think of because I'm went over everything in my notes here.
Well, what we haven't talked about is yes.
No, go on.
It's fine. We can get to that afterwards. There's something in your notes.
Okay, I guess I'll go on. But if you'll hold your thought for a sec,
I've got my notes on the screen as well. It's fine. We can get to it when we get to it.
So one thing that I feel like is interesting to brush up on is what is everyone else doing? If you actually watch in that little video, don't actually pull it up now, but if you watch the modernizing GNOME video, somewhere around the questionnaire mark, you can hear what sounds like a KDE developer. I think I actually knew exactly who it was based on the accent, and he was mentioning something about how they actually want to do similar stuff. They actually have this project. I'm gonna pull it up. KDE login, I think.
Okay.
KDE login manager, maybe. Here it is. Plasma login manager. They're doing something similar, very similar, in fact. Maybe not exactly similar, but kind of like GDM because they have some issues with SDDM. You might even know some of them, like having to like copy the config over and everything.
Well, yeah, I think have I spoken to David about this? I don't remember, but they have a lot of issues like because it's not part of KDE. There's obviously the mismatch of configuration and then like getting their screen reader working in it and then getting like non-English input and virtual keyboards, especially because they want to make a new virtual keyboard and then multi-monitor stuff. SDDM's not a bad project. It's just a very generic project, which means you're not going to have that tight level of integration like GDM has.
Yeah, so they're basically dealing with the same problem that GDM was kind of created to solve, and so they pretty much they're duplicating a lot of code. They have SCDM, which does so much generic stuff. I'm not sure how it does stuff like Bluetooth and all that, but I know it. Pretty much, they have to have 2 implementations of everything, which sucks, and I think it sucks a lot. So GNOME has a very interesting approach, and believe it or not, Enlightenment, if you know what that is, the window manager, Rasterman wanted to actually do his own thing, because I brought it up at some point, and he wants to do a thing called login mode, which is exactly how GDM works, and I like the GDM approach, where they basically, what GDM does, and all it does, is it literally just reuses GNOME Shell. In fact, you can start GNOME Shell from your terminal with like a mode setting and just set like GDM. You don't even need GDM installed, and it will pretty much just look like the same thing GDM looks like. Funny enough, but it's a great approach because that means that they don't have to sit and duplicate a bunch of code. They pretty much just start GDM. In fact, for example, one thing with GNOME is you need GDM to lock the screen. It pretty much just like when you log in, it turns off a lot of stuff to like save memory and all that. And then when you lock the screen, it'll go back to that. And it will. It's a nice little like process separation thing they're doing there, where you don't just have GNOME Shell itself logging, because maybe you've seen that really hilarious KDE error where if the lock screen crashes, it'll say like you have to press like Control Alt F1 and do like login CTEL.
Yes. Can we find a picture of it? Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Man, it prevents that case for like, okay, what if GNOME Shell crashes? What do you even do there? Well, okay, we might accidentally unlock the session or whatever. That wouldn't be good. And all sorts of bad stuff. So anyway, Plasma, they're redoing. They're basically doing the same stuff, kind of. I know in the talk with Adrian on modernizing GNOME, I think one thing they even addressed was like, how do we do this stuff without pissing off all the people that don't use systemd and stuff like that? Because they want to do all that stuff and they think it benefits them, but they have a very angry mob of Redditors that and people on YouTube, no hard feelings, that will probably find their location and their kids and family if they do stuff like that. Which is true. It's just how the environment is, But it's hard for them to do that stuff, but they want to. GNOME already has the bad reputation. They can get away with that stuff at this point. I actually skimmed a little bit through Plasma Login Manager, and one thing that actually bothered me a tiny bit, I don't think there's a systemd dependency yet, but it didn't look like they had something in place for like systemd stuff, because I know at some point they said they're going to start working on that, but I wonder if they're going to do it like the way GNOME did, or if they're just going to maintain like upstream everything. For the record, like I said, I used to work on KDE a tiny bit. I just like poked at KWin a little bit, and I'll tell you why I left, because the KDE code sucks so much. But anyway, I'm curious to see what they do. But what's interesting is that it doesn't look like they're reusing Plasma Shell for this. At least I think they're not. I don't know. Maybe they are. I know, but with Enlightenment, what Rasterman said he'd do one day is he'd pretty much do what GDM does, just reuse Enlightenment window manager, display like a fancy lock screen, and then you don't have to reuse all the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all that stuff. Good solution. Yeah, that's pretty much what. Hello.
Are we good?
Okay. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Wasn't sure. Anyway, was there anything else you wanted? You said you had something on your notes you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so you mentioned a little bit about getting this upstreamed. Obviously, upstreamed into GNOME isn't going to happen, but you were saying before about the OpenRC project. Yeah,
so we're going to just move. I know we're going to move the repository to the OpenRC one, which means nothing, but it does mean that if I, for example, die of a heart attack or something, or other people can pick it up and maintain it. Because I think Navi, they said they were going to do some stuff with it, just poke at it, fix some issues. The OpenRC stuff we were going to upstream was the environment variable changes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, is that what you wanted to know? Was basically, yeah, we're going to have a way to submit like export, import environment variables, kind of like systemd, except we're going to have a scope because we're cool like that. And that'll actually be nice. And honestly, I think systemd could try to do something similar. So I think it's worth mentioning that me personally, I don't hate systemd, and I actually one of the things I like about at least the Gentoo philosophy is we're less about like, oh, we ultra minimalist who want to get rid of everything. We think everyone should be able to use whatever they want. They have the freedom to. Lots of people, I believe one of the primary Gentoo like GNU maintainers actually uses systemd. Lots of people use it, and it's good that we kind of support both. We have the option. And what also happens is we end up taking ideas from systemd because they actually have some pretty good ideas sometimes, believe it or not. I mean, I know Leonard didn't really hit so well with Pulse Audio. I don't think he can even hear this video right now, but he did a good job with the init system, that's for sure. Like there are some things, whatever you think. Personally, I don't even know what init system you use.
I'm on Arch Linux. I don't even think about my init. It's just systemd.
Oh, I use Arch.
Yep.
I took you as an Arch person, honestly.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not, but we'll just go with it.
Did you break up on me?
Are we good? We disconnecting?
Uh-oh.
I can hear you just fine. Hello? Are we good? I'm gonna guess we're not good. Hello?
You there?
I can hear you. Okay, I'm just gonna end the call. We'll reconnect it. Okay, give me.
Oh.
Hello.
The moment you mention you're an Arch user, everything breaks, doesn't it?
I just disconnected from the call, so I wasn't sure what was going on. Are we good now?
Yeah, we're good now.
Okay.
It's always Arch, isn't
it? Yeah, well, I'm on Neri right now, so it's like, it's the GNOME portal on top of a Smithy-based environment on a scrolling window manager. There's many things that can go wrong here.
I am going to assume you made these programs up because I've never heard of them. I used to have a joke where I would go to people and they would be like, they would ask for alternatives to programs, and I'd be like, Knob Goblin. I would tell them, you should try Knob Goblin. They would reply to me like, oh, what's Knob Goblin? It's like, oh, it's this like audio daemon I'm using. It works great. But they Google it, and it doesn't exist.
Anyway.
I've never heard of Neri.
It's a fairly small environment, but anyway, it's a Wayland composite. I don't know if you're on. Well, I guess you're saying you're using GNOME. Are you using the X11 session then, or are you using the Wayland one?
Do I look insane? No, I'm not using the GNOME X11 session. It's kind of on life support at this point.
Yeah.
And I believe by GNOME 50, they're actually planning on not axing it, but they're free to remove features or remove bits of it, which is a whole nother story for another day. It looks like they're going to get a shitstorm for that.
I don't know. I think they've already been getting it for like the past year, so I don't know if it's gonna. I feel like anyone who was dependent on the X11 session, I would hope has sort of come to terms with the fact now that it's not going to stick around.
It's I think one of the issues I remember was a GIMP developer actually saying that color support was bad, but this has all since been improved a lot. And I think at the time it was a bit premature to be kind of like, okay, we're gonna drop X11. But the one thing I know is a lot of distributions are dropping X11 now, like entirely. They're not even offering it. Ubuntu, who I believe stuck with X11 for such a long time, NVIDIA finally received the message from Linus like many years ago and stepped their game up. It looks like they've greatly improved, I think, Wayland NVIDIA support, which, hey, is good. But I also don't use no video, so I don't know.
Well, it's not just the NVIDIA drivers that are better. Also, the Novo drivers are actually in a relatively good state now, so you can even use those. They've got Vulkan support working
That's
mostly.
good.
But yeah, there was an issue with NVIDIA cards for a while where they moved a lot of the. I think they moved things like fan control and clock speed out of the driver into firmware on the card. So the drivers just couldn't do anything. You couldn't reverse engineer it because you couldn't change the firmware on the card. So it's just gonna run at minimum speed. Enjoy your very expensive paperweight.
It sounds like something NVIDIA would do. But yeah, it looks like the state of things has improved a lot. I've worked with X11 a little bit in the past. I've had to mingle with some, Xlib, and I'm looking forward to its death a little bit. I'll miss it, but it's certainly. I was always a little skeptical with Wayland at first. Even to this day, I'm a little bit. But I think now that there's been a lot more, I want to say, enforcing of it, it is allowed a lot of room for it to improve to the point where, I think if I use X11 on my laptop, the battery will drain like a motherfucker. That's for sure. But just so much stuff has improved with Wayland. I think Enlightenment Window Manager, which, like I said, I used to play with that a little bit. They have Wayland support, but X11 is still kind of the king in that regards. I don't even want to get into the way Kwin separates the two. Oh my! That was actually the reason I left working on the project.
Well, they've recently split it into actually being able to install as two separate packages now. So that's an improvement.
I think they've improved so much of it since I've left. I know one of the things I think I did actually was I was a bit disappointed because at the time, like we were saying here, Wayland was pretty bad. Or at least it had bugs, and I implemented trackpad gesture support for X11. But this actually ended up having some issues anyway because X11 is so awful that the way like some applications would just sit and eat up the inputs. So I'd end up trying to do swipe gestures, and they wouldn't work on Firefox, unfortunately.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so I'm like, you know what, you're right. Let's just close this PR and move on, pretend nothing happened. So there's some things that I'm looking forward to how Wayland plays out. I do understand that I'm not a big fan of them planning on dropping X11. I'd at least hope to just kind of keep it around as like a last resort. But there's also just the thing you have to understand. The more you work with software development in general, it's hard to please users and please yourself, because when you one of the worst things you could ever deal with in any project, and this is something KDE suffers from so much, and I think they've learned from it since KDE 4, is bit rot. And you never want to deal with bit rot. And it can completely just hold back your entire project when you're sitting and juggling two different systems and having to test them. And as I've gotten kind of older and more experienced with all this, with software development in general, I can't blame GNOME for dropping all this stuff and just having this whole you know what, we're done kind of approach to software development, because it's what's allowed them to, I want to say, get so far with say Wayland support and all that. And it's even it's kind of pushed Wayland in general. It's kind of you got to have someone to say, to flip the bird a little bit and just start kind of pushing something. And as of late, I think Wayland's it's received a lot more attention lately, which is good, depending on who you ask. But for one thing, it's for certain is it doesn't hold back the people that are actually working on the software.
Mhm.
And I think this is something a lot of just FOSS communities in general struggle with, is that they have no respect for the developers, and they think they just do it because they have some secret agenda sponsored by Red Hat, um, to kill off X11 and have total Wayland supremacy or some shit like that.
Mhm.
But it's not like that. It's just, you can't torture the developers. They are the ones that make the software in the first place. If they want to do something you don't like, you have to suck it up.
Mhm.
And this is open source. If you don't like it, love of God, fork it or try and maintain it yourself. Like try
Mhm.
picking it up maybe and working with the developer, because most people are willing to work with this kind of stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just a lot of people are instead choose to be harsh about it and go on Reddit or G or whatever, and
Not
just sit
G.
and complain.
Let's not talk about. Let's not talk about G.
Look, at least G, when they do it, they're funny.
That's true. That's true. I'm not a G browser, but every so often people will send me a thread about myself. I'm like, oh god, what is this?
I haven't browsed in freaking forever. I know one thing that always made me laugh was, I think one of the GNOME developers, when they added thumbnails to the file picker, they actually referenced the meme. And I think they had a video, you've probably seen it, where
I
there's
did,
like the
yeah,
death
yeah.
of the file picker meme. I love that one. But yeah, just it's just kind of how it is. It's just X11's, it's not a paperweight. It's a lot of work to maintain X11, and there's kind of a reason why a lot of people just are shifting their focus away from it.
Mhm.
It's just dying.
Yeah.
I know there's like this thing called like X Libre. I'm gonna be really honest. I'm not getting into that.
Mhm.
I don't know anything about it personally.
Well, if somebody wants to keep it going, I'm not gonna. At the end of the day, right? Like, if you want to keep a project going, you fork it. That's totally fine. Like that's fine.
Like that's the beauty of open source in general. Is like, this is actually one thing why I like Gentoo so much,
Mhm.
is that if I don't like something about software, I can patch it.
Mhm.
Like I can just, like I said, I knew a guy, absolutely insane person, that was so dedicated to running everything as root. Even though he's a psychopath,
Don't
he
be
would
don't be
actually
dedicated
sit
to
and
that. Don't do that.
no, I
Get a
actually
better
just like
hobby.
stopped working with him. He would sit and patch programs that would hard like prevent root from working. And I kid you not, one of the fucking programs was Tor.
Aha. Yep. I wish you luck. I wish you luck.
Oh man. But it's just how it is. Like as I've kind of said here, like everyone's been friendly. Adrian, for example, I was kind of expecting at first when we talked, like a whole like, oh sorry, I can't help you kind of mentality, but complete opposite. Like I can think my opinions on most of all of the GNOME developers has changed. That like most of them, that they're pretty friendly to work with, and they're not just, they don't have this whole like, oh we're gonna remove this FU mentality.
Mhm.
Like they do a lot of things for a pretty good reason, and they often like follow up as to why they do things.
Mhm.
Sometimes, most of the time, um, instead of just doing something and being like, yep, suck it up, get over it. You can fork it if you want. They try to work with people, which
Mhm.
is nice. Um, so what I actually realized I almost forgot was
Mm.
Shepherd. There's
I
not
was.
much I'm going to say
I.
about
It's.
Shepherd.
It's right here in the middle of my list. I have it highlighted right now. Before we segue to that, one thing I did want to say is, whilst I totally respect the way GNOME's handling stuff, where they just, they don't feel like they want to keep the bitrot around. They just want to streamline things and focus on the things that, they're actually developing. At the same time, I do respect the approach that KDE has, where they're like, you know what? We actually will let the X11 side bitrot. We know we're not maintaining it. We know
That's
that Wayland still has some things that we need to get done, so we'll just get rid of that later. I understand why getting rid of it now might be a good idea, but I can also understand the approach that KDE is taking, where they just say, that's a later problem. People are happy with it, mostly happy with it. let's get Wayland in as good a state as possible and then take that away.
Yeah, so the thing with KDE Wayland is KDE's Wayland in general is, at least for a long time, it was always kind of behind. It probably still is a little bit today, but GNOME, on the other hand, they were kind of the first people on it. I think like they were right on top of it as soon as trying to push it hard, and I think they did an all right job with it because like the thing you got to understand is it benefits everyone.
Mhm.
You know, more people that can sit and report bugs for Wayland or whatever with DRM, all that stuff. They can it benefits everyone in the long run, and it's a net positive even if you don't use GNOME or not.
Mhm.
And it's why you gotta trust in those projects to do that stuff.
Mhm.
And I agree with. I'm actually more of a fan of keeping them both around. In fact, GNOME's approach for GNOME 50 is actually they're not removing it, at least I think, but they're basically saying that people are free to start cutting it out.
Yeah, I know it's not
And
going to be built by default, and yeah, so like, but when you start cutting things out, you're at a point where it's like, yes, it's still technically there, but if you're cutting things out, there will come a point where it just doesn't work anymore.
yeah, like one thing I might actually do if people are nice enough to me is I might actually try and maintain X11 for a little bit. At least I'll keep patches for it. I'll try to because I have some knowledge of X11 stuff like that. I
Mhm.
you know worked with it before. I've had to prod into Enlightenment a little bit. It's pretty similar. And I'll try my best to. I might not like pull in like new features they add,
Mm.
but like I'll at the very minimum try to keep it usable because we have a lot of Gentoo users. We're all about kind of choice,
Mhm.
and we want to kind of. If I put the effort in, I might maintain it, but unfortunately, I don't use X11, and surprisingly, I don't think a lot of our GNOME. We don't even have a lot of GNOME users, honestly. I don't know,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, I would be interested to see what like download numbers look like on Gentoo. Like, what are people
they're probably
mainly
not
using?
that low. I
Well,
mean, I know like
it's less like the hard numbers, more about like the percentages. What are people primarily using?
yeah, we need something like like one of those like things the BN does, like the pop count or whatever,
Mm-mm-mm.
popularity. Yeah, that'd be neat. But I mean, there's more KD users. I'll say that. Like
Mhm.
it kind of fits with the Gentoo mentality in general, anyway, of just so many options and choices.
Yeah, I would expect
Is
window
so
managers and KDE probably. That would be my guess at least, but who knows?
yeah. I think window managers are more of a Arch thing,
Yeah, maybe.
but there's a large share of window manager users.
Mhm.
I guess I can before we go on the Shepherd, I'll talk about like Gentoo in general.
Mm.
Like I currently have the GNOME 49 PR request up. It has been pushed not too long or not pushed, sorry, but it's up now.
Mhm.
I'll link it maybe later. But it's so what we're gonna do for it is we're actually going to mask. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term masking, but like masking a use flag.
Mhm.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is that if the user is using OpenRC, we are just going to prevent Gnome-session from installing because
Okay.
I still need to work out some issues with it. Like, for example, I prefer to not have the hacks in. I want to get the OpenRC stuff out first. Then I want to, add auto start support. But for the now, what we're going to do is we're going to have the system D users will be happy, and I'll create a separate pull request with like the GDM and the Gnome-session patches. One of the bastards I didn't mention here was Pam. I'm going to say it from the bottom of my heart. Fuck Pam. I hate Pam. It's awful. No one likes Pam.
The
No one should
pluggable
be forced to use
authentication
Pam.
modules, in case anyone's caring what it stands for.
Yeah, it's pretty much done for login. Like when you log in, Pam will do a bunch of stuff. It's how user services even work. I remember when I asked Adrian about Pam, he actually said no comment,
Mhm.
and I can't blame him because Pam is awful. But it does the job. Like I had to patch like one file. That's it. Um, so oh yeah, Shepherd.
Mhm.
So Shepherd was actually it looks like the people that did it first, but it looks like their approach is a bit older. They don't actually have any C files, so I'm not sure how they do it. Maybe they have a patch upstream. For anyone who doesn't know what GUIX is and stuff, it's basically, imagine NixOS. That's actually not very helpful. Imagine just literally any Linux distro, but you use like scheme list or scheme list Lisp for like everything. It's reproducible. I'm not even gonna lie. I think that for their init system Shepherd, which is basically their OpenRC, their systemd, it's pretty neat that it's scriptable with Sheen Lisp, or specifically GNU Guile, which is like a Sheen Lisp implementation.
Remember how you said
Basically a
about
program.
saying words that sound fake?
Yeah, you just need you'll need a GNU pop dog. You'll need GNU auto start. And you'll need most importantly Knob Goblin to actually use GNU Geeks.
Very important.
But yeah, it's an interesting distro, and they're the ones that I actually use their reference for a little bit. Unfortunately, I can read Scheme. Thank you, Emacs, for everything and nothing. But it's mostly fine. It's looks like they have the sessions hard coded. This is something I worked upstream not to do. Because there's also stuff, for example, the GNOME like initial login screen, which I'm not even sure how to set that up yet. I haven't gotten there, but it's kind of low priority because that stuff's mainly for like Fedora and Ubuntu. That that little like login screen, like, hey, welcome to Fedora.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's actually started, I believe, by GDM, and it just passes a flag. It starts GNOME shell with like one window. It's a neat little approach, but I haven't got. I technically support it, but I don't even know when it's called. Technically, to use it, you have to pass I believe it or not, a kernel like option. This is actually something software does sometimes. But after Fedora installs, it will reboot and it will set a kernel option like GNOME like auto start or not auto start GNOME like init login, and that will start it. It checks for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. But one way to do it. Hundreds of ways to start a login screen, I guess. But
yeah.
So they got it done first. I don't see their C files. But they did have screenshots somewhere showing it off. Yeah, I'm not familiar with any other distros that have done it. But as far as I know, I'm the only person that has done the most complete, implementation of it. So I'm curious to see what the GNU Shepherd people do as well in the future, and more importantly, what Artix will do.
Well, Artix is
God bless their
nothing. That's
yeah.
what Artix is.
Yeah. God bless their souls.
Well, it sounds like the main thing with the Artix case is the guy who is maintaining the package, like, doesn't really use GNOME anyway, and there's not really that many people that use GNOME on Artix, so like,
yeah,
I understand. It's just like a low priority for them. Like, I get it.
Yeah, I still don't like their mentality of it, but
yeah.
these are Artix users and they're a different breed of special, so you're kind of gonna get whatever you get from them, and I can't blame them for just not wanting to deal with it because they have like 800 init systems they got to worry about. And like I said, if I ever feel like it, what I might do in the future is I might set up a nice, like, I want to say a clone of their old approach, which is like where you basically just watch the services yourself, which basically will mean they only have to start one service and they don't have to sit and port all hundreds of them to each init system. And that'll make it easier for, like, I know Devuin is a pretty big audience, honestly. Maybe not as big as Artix, but they're a little more professional with it, I should say. And I know they'll benefit from that too. Like, it's not just Artix, so it might be worth the effort someday.
Yeah, I know you mentioned in one of your earlier DM comments, like, the idea of a pseudo init system, not pseudo as in that pseudo as in like a semi-translation layer sort of thing. What were you meaning by that? Is that what you're sort of talking about here?
Exactly. So essentially, this was actually what I wanted to do at some point because I was having issues with OpenRC. Was that I would basically, because there are some problems, for example, with shutting down the actual Gnome-session, which for now I have a hack in the C file, but I can actually just make a shell wrapper because OpenRC doesn't really handle services stopping very well at the moment. Or technically what OpenRC calls it a crash, surprisingly. It just says it crashes.
Okay.
So the way I kind of have it is I just like call a shutdown service and it'll shut down everything. It does actually have to tell Gnomes. You do actually, even the system D one has to tell Gnome to shut down, but this one does that and also stops the services and everything. So nice little approach for now. What was I saying a second ago? I forgot.
Pseudo init system.
Yeah. So basically, what that would have done is I would only have one user service. In fact, I might have not even had a service. I would have just had GDM manage that, where essentially it will act as a systemd or some sort of service manager. It'll start GSD and everything. It'll start this, that, and everything all around. It will, and then it'll watch them, which isn't too hard to implement. Surprisingly, it's it would have been an interesting approach though, because it would have allowed me to fine tune how things like stop and start. But there's also stuff, for example, like session management support, which is coming in like GNOME 50, which would have been tricky, but I probably could have gotten it working. But it probably would have helped those distributions a lot because essentially, since they only have to make one service script, they don't have to make a bunch of them and ensure those start and stop. They don't technically need user services. They could just have GDM started directly. I think that would have been a more flexible approach. Though surprisingly, what I think was nice about all of this stuff is it was kind of a net positive for OpenRC at least, because I think Navi even meant they like said something to me about like I I'm a pretty like apologetic person, and I think they said like no thank you because like I think they like it got them motivated to start working on all the environment stuff again, because essentially, like I said earlier, I don't hate systemd. I like its approach. I think we need a systemd because all these Linux distros. What are they gonna do about them? But and for the most part, we have started to kind of find some better solutions for. We also need like a nice alternative to run levels because right now we use these things called run levels. I'm not really going to get into that at the moment, but and like I stop the run level and it'll stop all the services related to GNOME without stopping Pipewire and all that stuff. What else is running? Yeah.
This is kind of one of the things I like to mention, and people who are hard against systemd do not like to hear it, that systemd, when it came along, was kind of doing a lot of things better and has kind of forced everyone else to start doing things better as well. And I know people don't like to hear it because, systemd, it does too many. I always love the systemd does too many things. Like, my guy, it's a software suite. It's not an init system. Shut up. But
there are so many myths about it, actually. Yeah. Like I know a lot of people say like, oh, systemd is like it's a mono repo of just a huge monolithic monstrosity. I mean, it's not. Like everything's like I know from what I understand, it's split up into a bunch of little services. I think the only thing they have that's just one big library is like libsystemd, but like, whatever.
yeah.
Like taking the parts out of systemd isn't hard. Like if you look at the elog and decode, it's pretty much the same as what systemd does. And honestly, maybe in the future they would consider taking that out. Probably not, but make it easier for everyone else. But so like a lot of I even have some more controversial opinions about systemd. Like I actually like journald, like its whole little logging system. Lots of people hate it because of like binary logs and everything, but it makes it easier to like sort logs in programs and stuff. Like when you have it in just plain text, how do you like sort the time, sort this, sort that? You got to do like crazy grep commands to like and like make your own like crazy Perl and one-liners. Which the crazy thing is, you can do that with systemd journald. You can literally just have it spit out plain text and just do all your old stuff you used to do when you were like in your 50s rocking Slackware or whatever. Like this isn't anything new, but I just think that like some of their approaches to things aren't bad. And like some stuff, for example, like C groups, which are like a fancy way to like prevent processes from like eating up too much memory. That was one thing that OpenRC actually stole from systemd because it was just really useful. Like I obviously talked about user services, but I'll kind of address what I said earlier is like, even if you hate systemd, even if you don't use it, Linux needs a systemd. It's not like the BSDs where, you don't have like 800 distributions of FreeBSD or something like that. There's only really one FreeBSD. I mean, there's forks, but like they're mostly based off of FreeBSD. So like the end result is that like you don't. In fact, honestly, like what systemd kind of does, it does the same thing that the BSDs kind of do, which is funny because I'll see BSD users be like, "Oh, systemd's bad." It's like it's a lot of the features that systemd can do, BSD kind of can do too. Like the design works similarly. It's just that systemd has to exist because there's, like I said, there's 800 Linux distributions out there. You can't have package maintainers or distro maintainers having to sit and create init scripts for everything themselves. And when you just have a streamlined, simple approach where like, you can write one service and it'll run anywhere, you need that. Whether you like it or not, whether you use systemd or not, it has to exist. And there's just innovative things about it. It starts up pretty fast, honestly. Like it can do a lot of stuff with like
that one's gonna get you some
encryption.
comments.
Oh yeah. I like to say it starts up more correct. It has a very starts a little too correct actually, because you probably have services that'll like hang on stop, like a stop job is running.
Yeah. Yeah, we've all had a problem where we try to shut down our system. It's like, running a stop job. 5 minutes later, it's still running it. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, the funny thing is that's actually because systemd works too well. So it's politely waiting for the service to stop. I just wish there was a way you could like press like Control C to stop it. I know with OpenRC, if a service hangs, sometimes you can just like kind of stop it. Even on startup, for example, I think with OpenRC, you can like stop it halfway, and like if let's say like a service is about to hang, you can just press Control C or whatever. I think it'll stop it, maybe drop you to a shell. Pretty useful stuff, but there's a lot of whether you like it or not, there's a lot of nice things systemd brought to the table that Linux in general, just as a whole, kind of needed. Like if it ever wanted to catch up with like Mac OS, Windows, all that stuff, if it ever wanted to even be on the same table, it just wasn't very healthy to sit and have everyone maintain their own system. And like I said, Leonard, he can't design an audio daemon, but he sure knows how to make a init system. I'll give him that.
On the topic of audio, this is going to be out the week before. The week before this comes out. I actually had the creator and main maintainer of Wireplumber on, so this is actually very timely.
I've been using Pipewire for a while, and honestly, it's pretty nice. I know it has like a nice like Lua configuration system.
It
Honest
now
to
is
God.
JSON. Do you have a bunch of Lua configuration? Because they changed it about a year ago.
They switched to JSON of all things?
Yeah, it's because upstream Pipewire is also using it, so it just makes sense to do the same thing on both. They still use Lua for scripting, but like general configuration stuff is JSON. So like you don't need to use Lua to rename outputs now, but if you want to script it, there is still Lua.
Too big of a problem. I think that's Pipewire's fault for using JSON of all things. But anyway,
it's
well, I'm not going to get.
It's not technically JSON.
You know what?
If somebody wants to argue about it, it's like a specialized JSON format. I don't care enough to argue about it.
You know what? Look at the bright side. At least it's not XML.
Yeah, that's true. I've had okay. XML is a totally fine machine readable format, but I don't like it. My worst experience with XML is, and most normal people aren't reading these, so it's fine. It's not really a problem. But Kdenlive project files are in XML, and I wanted to export like chapter markers in like the YouTube chapter format. And in the file, it's like 12 levels of XML deep, and then it's a JSON list embedded in the XML. Yeah.
Uh,
I hate it.
I have nothing. I can't blame you. I mean, it has its uses, but like 98% of the time, it also doesn't.
Mhm.
So I'll take JSON or whatever it uses over anything. I have a similar gripe with like systemd. I personally think it would have been cool if systemd used like Lua as its like service format. Though I understand why they didn't, because they didn't want like Turing complete like init scripts, and you can always just call Lua directly. But it would have been cool, kinda. I'm a bit of a, don't get me wrong, considering that we use shell everywhere in Gentoo and stuff. I'm a bit of a shell hater, and that's why I have those opinions.
Well, I get why they didn't want to do it, because then you basically create the init script problem again, where now
Yeah.
everyone's writing init scripts in Turing complete code, and you're gonna break something.
Yeah, I get it. Like the nice thing with, at least with OpenRC, one thing that we try to kind of find a middle ground with that is that you can create services in like 3 lines of code. You don't have to sit and create a start function, a stop, all that stuff. You can kind of inherit it, and it'll mostly do what it can to work. And as a result, we can kind of port the same init scripts over to like OpenRC, or sorry, like not Artix, but what's the other distro? Alpine,
Alpine, yeah,
like
okay.
Alpine, for example. It reminds me that one thing I actually need to work on with Gnome-session, I think Adrian was talking to me about this, was that the way he designed the whole Gnome-session thing and how it was like modular and like you could plug in your own stuff, is that you could actually, what he actually wanted to happen, at least what I didn't do yet, was that you could actually just install Gnome-session on, say, like Artix, for example, not Artix, darn it, Alpine. I think post-market OS specifically is what he brought up, was that you can choose the init systems without like rebuilding everything. You can just install them, I believe he said. And there was a possibility that Gnome-session, just that package, would just install like the main file and everything. It would just exclude the main leader function or leader file. And then you install Gnome-session OpenRC on top of that, and it'll drop in the extra binaries needed for everything to work. And then, for example, if they switch to systemd, they can just install the systemd version. They don't have to sit and install the base as well. And that's something I actually need to work on soon, but not a priority. I don't use Alpine or anything. Um,
So you've mentioned a couple of times that you don't hate the approach that systemd is taking. With that in mind, why don't you just use systemd then?
well, for one, since I'm picking up some development, a larger portion of our user base is OpenRC, so it's nice to ensure stuff works.
Okay.
Second of all, I like OpenRC. I don't personally like just having one init system out there in the first place. Like I said, I just said that systemd has to exist. I didn't say I have to use it. I would probably use it in some areas like a server. Like, it's not bad. The other problem with systemd, my personal issue with it, is I don't like its service format that much. Like, I grew up kind of mostly using like FreeBSD and stuff, and I've just grown so used to those init scripts and stuff that they're kind of second nature to me. So I'm just, if I like, I can't hack up a systemd service like out of memory, but I can do that for OpenRC, FreeBSD, OpenBSD. I can do it for all of those. Like, it's second nature, kind of like you just call functions and stuff. Um, So it's mostly like familiarity, habit. There are some things I don't like about systemd's approach to things. Like they do a lot of stuff. I
Mhm.
won't give them. I'll give them that. But there are some things I don't need them to do. Like there are some weirder things like home D. I'm not too even like up to snuff on that. There's some weird decisions with like their time date stuff. For example, I know they like default to like Google name servers or some shit. I don't know if they still do that these days, but I don't personally care for that.
Mhm.
Um, but like I said, I'm just more familiar with plain init scripts, and generally speaking, I instead of just using systemd, I would like to copy the cool stuff out of systemd, so there's a good alternative on the market, and it's not
Mm.
just systemd does everything. Because I'll tell you one thing, I absolutely hate sysv init. I hate plain init scripts.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I think at some point I addressed my issues with runit. I messed with runit once on void. It's awful. It's horrible.
Mhm.
I had a server, I had a daemon that would at some point not work anymore. And Runit has this really cool feature where it automatically restarts the service if it crashes.
Ah.
This would result in the fact that I couldn't SSH into my server anymore because it was at 100% load. Because Runit kept freaking restarting the service and completely destroying my server. And I actually had to pretty much get access to the hard drive because I couldn't even access it through the ZNC console that
Mhm.
my VPS provider provided. So my system was a brick
Uh-huh.
because Runit didn't know what to do. And this is kind of an issue, which is what happens when you go for the ultra simplicity approach to stuff. You can go as simple as you want, but you need things to at least work.
Mhm.
Um, and the Gentoo mentality isn't really about simplicity. It's mostly about choice and
Mhm.
customization, which is like I said, why I like that we support both. I probably wouldn't like Gentoo as much if we only supported one of the two.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
but since we support both of them, there's more options for everyone. Um, it's just
Yeah,
nice to have.
I think choice is a good way to describe Gentoo. The way a lot of people have kind of described it to me is like LFS without needing to do all of that like initial stuff. Like you start
It
from
is.
that, what is it, stage 2, and then it's just all of that stuff that is gonna be the same everywhere, like compiling the GNU all this, like all this basic stuff. That's good, and then we'll actually worry about the stuff that you actually care to change.
Yeah, it's kind of like that's kind of what all Linux distros are. Which as you become more experienced with Linux, you start to treat them like that. Is
Mm,
they are literally just Linux from scratch with a package manager,
mm,
and maybe like a opinionated default.
mm,
That's kind of
mm,
all it is. And but there's a lot of extra stuff too. For example, like patches that get applied. Like I know Gentoo, they apply all sorts of small patches to ensure things work smoothly. Um, and bug fixes. I think at some point we were gonna like lots of packages. For example, they need upstream bug fixes and
mm,
patches to get things to work. Even just like regular bug fixes, not just like issues with Gentoo. Like some
mm,
packages have bugs that are just so severe that have already been fixed, but a release hasn't came out, so you backport the patch to ensure it works for now.
mm.
Um, so that's, but yeah, I know there's some people that use Gentoo just like performance or whatever. It's never been about that.
Mhm.
It's just about choice and you know uh, just having that full control over your system, not the f unroll loops or whatever.
I do love the performance argument. Oh, it's so performant, and then I'm gonna compile my kernel. I save a few milliseconds here and there. I'm gonna compile my kernel. Much, yeah, okay.
Linux Linux is only free if you value your time.
I do like the Gentoo model. Like I use Arch because I've kind of always used Arch, and like it is what it is.
I'm not picky at all about what people use. Like
Yeah.
use Fedora. I actually like a lot of those distros too.
Mm.
Um,
Well, my main
I'm
reason
pretty
for not
unbiased when it
using
comes to
anything
this
else,
stuff.
like I I talked to some Fedora people, and they're like, "Hey, you should use Fedora. Come try out this. Come try out that." I'm like, "Yeah, I could, but then I've got so much of my system set up the way that I want to use it. I've been on this system for like 5 years now. I don't want to change anything.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that. I think one interesting thing about I think recently I had an issue where I completely broke my system. This is just one of those things I like about Gentoo. But
Mhm.
I completely broke my system because I installed the binary package of curl for whatever reason. Don't ask why. Please don't ask why. But um, and assuming you won't ask why, but um, I I actually like what I did was I just took like the stage 3 tarball
Mhm.
and just copied it, like backed up my old lib64 and then copied the base one over. And then when I booted back into the system, when I crewed into it, I pretty much just re-emerged world and had
Mhm.
everything rebuild,
Mhm.
and bam, back to a new working system. In fact, ironically, the one thing that mainly brought me back to Gentoo was the addition of binary packages. Because believe it or not, they're actually pretty useful.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, this is one thing about the BSDs I always loved was that like they have binary packages, but if I want to build something from source, well,
Mhm.
I have my answer. You know, I can just go to the ports and
Mhm.
build
Mhm.
it the way I want to. I mean, every Linux distro can kind of do that. It's just like stuff like Debian, for example, with their whole like, oh, just extract the source and then give you a tarball. It's kind of dumb. I prefer
Mhm.
it a little automated.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's what's kind of nice about Gentoo nowadays.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I did talk about the binary package stuff when that first became a thing. Um, it's nice because that was like one of the big things, like one of the big jokes about Gentoo, right? Like, as I said, the whole, I guess with the kernel there has been a binary kernel for a long time anyway, but browsers, maybe a browser's a bad exception. Anyway, the joke about Gentoo was, compile everything. This is a giant waste of time. With that being there, like it's less of a point to argue about and more, as you're saying before, it's about choice. Do you want to compile it? Is there
Hmm.
some compile flags you want to set? Because it can be a bit fiddly to compile certain applications. So knowing that the compilation is going to work through your package management tool, like that is a nice level of security to have.
Yeah, like like I think one of the bigger uses of binary packages is actually for that situation I just described a second ago. It's just to fix issues.
Mm,
You know, if say your source package is broken, you can just pull in the binary one because that usually has a pretty sane default, and you
mm,
can test with that, get things back up to snuff.
mm,
And
mm,
in general, it's very nice to have sometimes I find myself in a pickle where like I want to install a package like now. I don't care about customizing it. I just gonna grab the binary package and it's usually there for me, so
mm,
that's pretty nice.
mm,
Um,
mm,
so it's one of those things that I think like if Gentoo didn't have it, I probably wouldn't be using this. I know all the hype nowadays is Nix OS. There's even been some people that have left Gentoo development to work on Nix, I think. I haven't messed too much with Nix. I think it's interesting. There's some parts of it I like actually, but I know like and then there's you have like them, which is like all binary based, and you have GNU Geeks, which I know is like all source based.
mm,
So we're kind of just in between that little land.
mm. Yeah,
But
Gentoo.
I can't personally say too much about those distros.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I had a NixOS release manager on once, and I still I understand the Nix model, but it I I cannot justify to myself actually running it. Like I get it, and I if I was gonna do it, I'd have to like start making a ton of videos about it because I just don't want to deal with everything that it seems like you have to deal with if you're doing Nix. That's just not for me. Like Arch, people who don't know about Linux think Arch is a difficult project to run. Oh, it's so difficult to maintain a no, it's not. No, it's not. It's very easy. Just do update. Every 6 months there'll be a manual intervention.
The thing that irritates me oh, you can keep going. Keep
No,
going.
I was just gonna say the NixOS model having to worry about like writing config files to install packages and all and learning an entire new configuration language. I would like to do it, I keep putting it off.
I can't blame you. I know that with like one thing we have that is good enough for me, at least with Gentoo, is we have slots, which
Mhm.
are pretty much what Nix is all about. Is like with slots you can basically install specific versions of packages on the same system. Like for example, I could have two
Oh,
versions of GTK installed,
I did not know
two
that.
versions of some. Yes, a very nice feature. And this is actually what Nixos kind of existed to solve, from my knowledge, is that like, okay, what if you want Python 2 and 3 installed on your same system?
Mhm.
You can kind of do stuff like that. But it's kind of also weird because, for example, why would I want like, I don't know, the latest version of like, I don't know, like Vim, I guess. I'm just making up something.
Mhm.
Like I don't need three versions of that installed on my system. I only need one. But as a result, it kind of just creates all this litter. Like, every package is usually a little larger because it has to maintain its own state and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And then there's the whole thing with like, oh, it uses a functional programming language. I'm like, who gives a shit, man? I don't know. I'm just kind of happy with what I've used for a long time, and I'd look in the NixOS. I like some of its features, but Gentoo kind of already has some of those things that I need anyway, like
Mhm.
slots for primarily libraries, which is all I need them for. But at the same time, I also like to patch stuff, and from my knowledge, NixOS is binary based.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
and
for
there's
me.
also GNU Geeks, but
Mm,
GNU Geeks is a GNU project, and you know how that goes.
mm. Yeah, for me, the only thing that would really matter for is software that I kind of need to know is working. Like, I had an issue the other day where Kden Live, I don't know if it's a dependency, where in the stack it is. It's just decided that it can't see my GPU anymore. So I swapped to the
Oh no.
Flatpak version, and yeah, that one's pack. I don't know if I'm assuming that the Arch packages probably broke something then, because it's the same version in the Flatpak and the native package, so it's probably something the Arch maintainers did. But I kind of need my video editor to be able to render video. That's pretty important.
This is actually another thing I love about Gentoo is the rolling model for it is we're semi-rolling, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean you can't pull in the newest packages. We have a term like unmasking a package to like, for example, typically when a package is introduced
Mhm.
to the Gentoo repository, um, it is marked as testing, which is similar to say something like GNOME unstable or whatever. However, one thing that's great you can do is if you want to install an old version of the package, you can do that. Assuming the libraries don't conflict and everything. But for the most part, you can roll back to stuff if you want to. Um, but even better though is that there are considerations before packages are put into stable, and sometimes you can actually just unmask a package. Like for example, say I want GNOME 49, but right now I think in stable we have GNOME 48, which was only a couple days ago, surprisingly. If I want GNOME 49, I'll just unmask it. I'll say like, okay, I want the testing version of it. I can run GNOME 49 while everything else, say I want, I don't know, GNOME text editor to be GNOME 47 or
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
Like I can have kind of pick and choose. Like in your situation, say KDE Live breaks on me, well, I could just kind of roll back, or at least install the old version until then. Well, there's also ButterFS and all that, of course.
Mhm. Mhm. Again, there's
But
multiple ways to do things.
certainly, I think Arch is usually like the moment the package gets bumped, they just get rid of the old one. Um,
Yeah,
I
usually.
think.
There's some weird random exceptions. Like I remember, I think it was like 2 or so years ago, there was some regression in GCC where I think they held back the package for about 6
Typical.
months. Can you hear me?
I think we're right now. We've.
Oh.
Oh, I just said typical.
Right, right.
I think we had some issues. We've been recently bumping GCC. I know there's some progress with getting packages to work with C23.
Mhm.
Um, so that's been like we have some breakages every once and then,
Mhm.
pretty often sometimes, but most of the time, the nice thing with Portage is Portage will survive. I broke into the Debian system and I can promise you it remains broken. it's impossible to fix apt if it breaks.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
Gentoo is, at least Portage, sorry, is really good at just not breaking.
mhm,
Like it's hard to break it
mhm.
unless you really screw stuff up. Whatever.
Well, we kind of segued way off of OpenRC, but I still think this has been I don't know, I've enjoyed this. This has been fun.
I've never really been on this kind of thing before. I've never even really been on I want to say like this kind of public arena. This is probably like my first. I think the shout out I received at like I didn't even receive like a direct name shout out, but that was enough to make me pretty giddy.
Mhm,
Was like having my work kind of acknowledged because hey, the reason I do open source is for attention, obviously.
mhm, mhm.
Um, no,
Do you
but
have any experience like doing public speaking or streaming or doing a talk or anything?
I mean I kind of work at a job where I do a lot of like usually just like pep talk and stuff like
Mhm,
maybe not pep talk but more like just slow chatter like
mhm,
what's up, how you been, and it helps me a lot with that kind of thing. I'm usually not too bad with public speaking. I'm not gonna wink wink,
mhm.
but um I think this is definitely an easier approach. It's just doing a podcast.
No, I was
But
gonna
like
say
I've
because
never
a lot of people I have on, if they don't have experience with it, they can't really formulate their thoughts in a way that someone else can understand. And you've been doing a perfectly fine job here.
appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like. I have some friends. I've had to like give my own little mini speeches sometimes on things.
Mhm. Right,
But
right.
I think a good skill when working with open source in general that you have to have is social skills.
Mhm,
A really good skill, actually, one of the most important. And unfortunately, you don't see people that are like that.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so it's like this, for example. It's this whole little talk we're doing. This helps me a lot because I'll probably have to talk in front of big groups of people. Um, Which honestly, God, I'm surprised I'm doing this running off of like 4 hours of sleep and holding up so. um, so, and I could probably stop saying so much, but you know, speech 101.
Mhm.
Um, uh, so it's yeah, this is definitely the first time I've done this kind of thing, but it's been good. That's kind of why I wanted to talk a little bit with you beforehand, just to kind of get to know you,
Mhm,
because I know this might sound a strange thing to confess, but I don't watch Linux YouTubers, any of that kind of stuff. I don't really even watch tech YouTube or anything like that. Um, Mainly because I can get that stuff from like a blog post.
sure, sure.
Not the shit on your work or anything. I
No, people.
typically
It is a recurring trend for people to refer to me as a as a glorified screen reader recently.
I know there are lots of people into that stuff and that's fine though. Like I'm
Mhm.
not like against the idea of like some people maybe they want to have it in the background. That's
Yeah.
something I actually do sometimes. I'll be on a walk. I want to have something playing in the background.
Mhm.
Um, So yeah, so like that's like I think we first like talked. I'm like, well, what's that sticker on your mic? I didn't recognize it. I definitely am not like a frequent viewer here, but
Mhm.
I guess that makes it all the more exciting. Um, Having someone that's not like familiar with you.
Mhm. Mhm. No, it's yeah. I like I maybe I needed some speech classes as well. Jesus. Um. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, a lot of people I have on aren't like they may be like tangentially familiar with my work. They may have heard my name before, but may not necessarily be active listeners. So it's not like a new thing to have someone on that isn't really aware of me. Like, so I don't know. I'm kind of used to it myself. And I think you are right
I
there about, people liking just background noise. I'm kind of the same. If I'm cooking food or something, I like to have something on in the background. Some people have a TV on, some people watch other things, but it's nice to just be listening to something going on if you don't have anyone that, you can talk to right there.
you ever watch your own streams? I've always wanted to ask a streamer this.
Streams I don't watch
Not
back
streams, but
as much, but the podcast I do check over because I do cut out clips as well, and my videos obviously I have to watch through. I actually watched through them twice. I watched through them once to edit it, and then watched through it again to make sure I didn't leave any cuts that are duplicates again, because I've done that a number of times.
yeah, I do have respect for this kind of scene. I say scene like it's an underground thing, but like like I think there's also just some side effects though, because YouTubers, or I want to say the average viewer of YouTube channels can be interesting. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
For record, I do not read YouTube comments.
I
um,
actually do. I read most of mine for anyone who's curious. If you want a good time to comment that I will see it, anytime before about 10 a.m. South Australian time. Anything after that, I'm probably not going to read the comment.
yeah, I know there's also some more questionable figures out there like Lunduke and stuff like that. Which I noticed you definitely aren't trying to be someone like that. Where I don't think what Linux needs right now, at least just open source in general, is it doesn't really need like, I want to say like a Keemstar clone. Like it doesn't. There's already enough garbage going on, so we don't need. I want to say someone like, I'm okay with stuff like, for example, what you do. You mostly cover over it. That's good. Like you'll obviously get some controversial stuff every once and then, but that's normal. But then you have some people that I want to say kind of incite the fire. Like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with who you watch, what you want to watch, or whatever. You get whatever you want. But there are some people that like it kind of hurts a little bit for like distro maintainers, package maintainers, when you get like a video comment like, oh, this guy's a moron and he should kill himself or whatever. Like you have some stream like YouTubers like that I want to say this is not the time with all the drama that goes on every day in Linux. Like I swear to God, I wake up every morning, there's something new going on.
I was definitely a lot harsher in the past. Not, you should kill yourself, but
Oh no.
definitely a bit harsher in the past. But one of the reasons why I like to do the podcast the way I do, like, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm kind of like relatively hands-offish with at least episodes like this, where I will give you questions and I will like sort of direct you towards topics, but I kind of let you just do your own thing. I kind of want to just, the way I like to do it is sort of give developers a way to show that there's a person working behind a project, that it's not just a
Yeah, and I
username, it's
like
not
that.
just a profile picture.
Yeah, I absolutely like that, and like I said, I appreciate the honor. I've never been on this kind of thing, so it's good practice for me. It's good getting to meet you, and I guess everyone else that watches it. Um, but like I said, like I'm not so talking about podcasts. I'm more just talking about, like, it's fine if you go over drama, but I know there are some people that go overboard. Like I said, like you have like you have some figures like Lundu, for example. Like usually they can make their titles sound a little clickbaity. I don't want to say that, but like you have some they go a little harsher on the topic, and that's fine. But it often ends up backfiring for some of the developers and people that work on it. Like I said, I appreciate you doing like the podcast and stuff. That helps a shit ton. But you also have some people that only focus on the negative aspect. They never look at like they only do drama stuff,
Right.
which
Yeah, no,
and
that's totally, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying there. Like, yes, obviously drama stuff's gonna come up, but like earlier this week, I did a video on, there's a website called Low Tech Magazine where they run their entire server on solar power. And it's not solar power with something else, it is solar power. So if the battery dies, the server shuts down. And things like that. It's just, hey, here's someone doing a cool thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like it's cool to just kind of have stuff. But by the way, does that server actually shut down when it goes nighttime, or does it have a battery?
They have a battery. They do have a battery. But
That
it
is
does. I
interesting.
think they have a 98% up rate, something like that. Obviously,
That's pretty thick.
most of the time it goes down is during winter.
Of course.
They also had
Um,
there's also a bad kernel update which raised the power usage by I think a couple of volts, and that caused their outage rate to go up about 30%.
well, that's interesting. Yeah, there's yeah, I guess just to kind of summarize, I don't mind people going over drama because it
Mhm.
happens. It's good
Sure,
to
sure.
have people in the know instead of just pretending it's not happening. It's just some people kind of incite violence with it. Like it kind of turns into a shitstorm when they make a
Mhm.
video, and that's okay every once in it if the problem's like big enough, But like all the time,
Mhm.
I couldn't do that personally. That would drive me insane. I have to like tap out of some of the drama sometimes. I don't even know anything that's been going on with the whole like something like was it System 76 or something or no framework? I think all that
Yeah,
stuff going on.
framework you're thinking of. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, clearly I don't know, but and I think it just makes me a lot happier staying out of that stuff mostly. Like
Mhm.
I'll maybe just brush up on it, but I won't like dig any further into it.
Yeah, completely understandable. I think a lot of people I think a lot of people kind of just let themselves get very attached to things that they aren't involved in. I think is a good way to put it, where they
Yeah.
spend every waking minute on a thing that they don't actually care about, but it's something that is just this is going to be my fixation for the next couple of weeks.
That's yeah, this is kind of like I said why I wanted to even do this whole because I think it started I made like a YouTube comment like okay this actually isn't the way you expected it to be like okay the
Mhm.
people were actually nice upstream. It's because sometimes like I said you it kind of all starts from a little bit of misinformation and
Mhm.
you have people like oh well obviously GNOME hates everything that isn't system D and that's why we're here in the first place is because that's not particularly true. In fact it's
Mhm.
quite the opposite. There's a lot of consideration put into other things that I had to put up the work in, and
Mhm.
I'm glad I got to address it. But like, it's kind of what I'm saying is like sometimes it can spread the wrong message.
Sure.
I'm not saying your video, by the way, actually did because you actually did mention people working on it, so
Mhm.
that's fine. Um, but I would imagine other Linux YouTubers would probably just jump straight to the whole like, oh yeah, GNOME bad. Uh,
Right. Right. No,
use
I get what you're
hyperlinks or
saying.
something.
No, I totally get what you're saying, and I did see some of that coverage from some outlets. So yeah, but what are you gonna do? I can't change what other people are doing.
That's true. I can. But
So
yeah, it's
um yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't really have anything else to say.
Okay, I was gonna ask was there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we sign off, or is that pretty much it?
Hmm. Uh, now I'm thinking, but we have been here for like how long now?
It's just going on 2 hours.
Uh, oh wow, feels like it's been like 30 minutes, man. I don't think I have anything else to say. I guess I could probably shill myself. Like, please, test out the GNOME 49 stuff I've been working on if you're on Gentoo and you use OpenRC.
Mhm.
Um, I guess I could shill the other thing I was working on. I'm
Yeah, if
working
you
on
want
a
to
Portage
mention
clone.
anything that you want to shout out, feel free to do so.
Me, myself, and I'm the greatest. Um, I think my latest project that I've been picking up, I tend to pick up projects and then forget about them sometimes. It's how it is. But um, was I'm working on a Portage clone, which like emerged. Uh, it's pretty slow. Not because of Python, surprisingly, even though I'm writing it in C like a maniac, um, but mainly just the algorithms, like just some stuff. And it was primarily just to learn how it all works. That's just been something I'm working on Gentoo related.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Any other links? Nothing? I'll include anything you want to mention, or maybe if you forget, I'll just put in the description down below. Just send me a link if you think of anything else.
Hello to any of my friends that are watching. Because I am probably going to link them to this.
Yeah, I will
But
send you a link
anyway,
to
do you
this when
have
it comes
anything else
out.
to say?
No, I was just gonna do my outro.
All right, you can do your outro.
Actually, I guess besides that, it was a fun time having you on. I really enjoyed this. I actually haven't had anyone on. Okay, no, I've had someone on involved in Gentoo. I don't know if I assume you heard about it. The guy Imolo who was doing Gentoo on things like a PS2.
I actually don't know that
Okay,
one too much.
okay. Yeah. He's
I'll
done
have to look
Gentoo
at it actually.
on a number of devices that you shouldn't put Gentoo on. You'd be surprised how long it takes to compile a Linux kernel on a PS2. The answer is it's a long time.
I think my laptop, it takes like 2 hours just to
Yeah,
build everything,
it's
but
definitely not
I'm
2
too lazy
hours.
to disable everything. 6?
Yeah, no, it was a good episode. I enjoyed this, and thank you for coming on and doing this.
No problem. I appreciate talking with you, and thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I'll do my outro then. So, my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. Sometimes I stream as well. I probably will do another Cosmic stream at some point. There will be streams there besides Cosmic beta testing and bug reporting, so check that out if you feel like doing so. The gaming channel is Brody on Games. Right now I'm playing through Yakuza 6 and Silksong, and if you want to find the video version of this, it is on YouTube at Tech Over Tea, and the audio version is on basically every podcast platform, Tech Over Tea. Spotify also has video if you care about Spotify video for some reason. I'll give you the final word. How do you want to sign us off?
Using the log out command, I guess.
Sure. Perfect. Fine.